Hey friends, welcome to another video where I will share 3 myths I believed about software engineering and how they were debunked when I became one. Hi, I'm Laura and I'm a designer who turned into a software engineer about 5 years ago, and right now I work as a software engineer full-time in a big tech company in Europe, and I sometimes make YouTube videos about my life in here. So when I was still working as a designer more than 5 years ago and diving a bit into code, I had some ideas and preconceptions that made me unsure about whether I wanted to pursue a career or a full-time job in software engineering. After a while, I took the jump, and I have to say that my life has dramatically improved because of that. I have learned and I have grown a lot from this new career. And so if you're like me and you're unsure if software engineering is for you, these are 3 things that I found to be untrue about being a software developer. So the first one is I thought that people were weird and antisocial. Let me explain this here. So I studied design in college, and I did take a couple of, I wouldn't call it software engineering, but more like software development or coding classes in college. And once I took this class that was from the computer science department, and when I took this class, I really had I left with a very bad impression of the people there. They looked very nerdy, and they really all the time were talking about how to make their code better, how these algorithms work, and so on and so on. Looking back, I think this was actually very impressive and a very passionate way in which these young students were thinking about coding. But for me, at the time I was very young, and I got the impression oh my god, these people are weirdos. They don't know how to interact with others. They just talk about code and software engineering the whole time. And since then I was like, okay, I don't think I want to associate myself with this kind of personality of behavior. And that was one of the reasons that I always had it in the back of my mind, and it's also a very big stereotype that people who work in engineering or computer science are huge nerds, and that they lack social skills. They're basically in their computer the whole time. And what I found is that actually I've met really cool people in my job, and that social skills are actually very important for this job. So if you're a software engineer or someone who is maybe very good technically and you're just very good at coding, that's great. That's super important for the job. But I would say equally as important is having the social skills to, talk to others, explain your train of thought, convince people of your ideas, work with your teammates, talk to your manager, and so on. In a lot of cases, if you have a person who's very good technically, but they cannot communicate with others, they cannot communicate with your team and work together with others, rude to people, they don't want to mentor, to explain their ideas, these people will most likely don't succeed, and people will avoid working with them instead of including them for new projects, and so on. The second myth that I thought to be true is that this type of career or this type of work is only for geniuses, that you could only become a software engineer if you were top of your class in mathematics, in physics. That's also one of the reasons that software engineering was very intimidating for me when I was a designer. And even though I like to code a bit and I did a lot of interactive and web design and so on, I was very intimidating of this idea of actually performing as a software engineer, because I thought the bar was super high. What I've learned also by my path of me myself becoming a software engineer is that coding is a skill, and it's a skill that anyone can pick up. And actually coding is quite easy to pick up because there's so many resources, some people who are teaching it around the world. So of course it's easier for some people than for others, but I truly believe that anyone who wanted to become a software engineer and someone who codes for work could easily do it. This is not to say that the people who I work with and software engineers in general are not very smart. I would say it's actually the opposite. I think there's people who are incredibly brilliant. I don't think these people are, particularly more intelligent or more skilled than others. I think that they are just very passionate and very interesting in understanding you know how software works. So yes, there's a lot of smart people and a lot of people that I think are not geniuses but incredibly smart, but I don't think that they are software engineers because they are smart. I think they are smart because they work and learn to become better software engineers. And the third myth that I realize is not actually true is that if you're a software engineer, you will be coding the whole day. This was, of course, one of the things that excited me about software engineering, because when I learned to code, I really found it like a very fascinating thing to do. I was really hooked in doing it. And I have to say that right now, maybe at 10 or 15%, if I'm lucky, of my whole time is spent coding. So then what's in the job apart from coding? A lot of meetings, or I wouldn't say a lot, but we have the necessary meetings where you need to align with others and meet with others. You need to check with your team how the different projects are going, if you need to steps somewhere to help with something that, I don't know, needs more engineers there, or you need to pair program with one of your peers so that you two can work on a piece of code together. You have to meet with designers, product managers, with testing engineers to make sure that when you actually get to code, you're going to code something that is useful and it's actually what you want to build and what everyone wants to build. And another thing I've realized is that this might not be necessarily true when you're just starting to learning to code. I think when you're a junior, it's very important that you spend a lot, and if not most of your time, coding and learning how to code and doing projects, doing a lot of small features, testing your code and so on. But I found that as your career progresses, the time that you spend coding will be a bit less, and you'll be more focused on mentoring other engineers, communicating your ideas with others, writing documents so that you are sure the architecture and the systems are right. So yes, now I spend way less time coding than when I first started or when I was not working full-time as an engineer. But I found it to be a much more complex set of activities than just sitting in the desk and coding whatever your manager or the company tells you what to do. You actually have agency and creativity to work on the things that you want to work, or the things that are impactful, and make them in a way that they make sense and they are just better built because you worked on all the aspects of it and not just on the code. So that's it. Thank you for listening to this video and see you the next time. Bye.